lifestyles. Therefore, says the philosopher of people who get grapes, his name is John Hospers. Therefore, says John Hospers, government is the most dangerous institution known to man. Now, I want no misunderstandings here. I am not saying that people who work hard for their grapes shouldn't feel attached to them. I am very attached to my grapes. I love my grapes. That could be rapidly taken out of context. I love my grapes. I want my grapes. You get your grapes, you love your grapes. And I am not saying that there is something flawed with an ethic of hard work and responsibility and taking personal responsibility. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that stuff. But what I am saying is that the point of view, this laissez-faire capitalism point of view, it is assuming that all people are equal in their advantages and their disadvantages. And that is not true. That is not the way the world really works. Some people are just lucky and other people are unlucky. Amen. Some people, they win the ovarian lottery. They're born into secure, safe, loving home situations. They are well on their way to that grape. And other people are not lucky. They don't win the ovarian lottery, and they are born into environments that are so deeply impoverished that early on in their life, chronic stress sets in. And you know what that does? It manifests in terms of all sorts of behaviors like impulsivity, forgetting easily, blurting things out, acting before asking permission. All of this, the classroom teacher interprets as malicious acting out. And they are well on their way to cucumbers. This is the way the world really works. The way of the real world is unfair and undeserved inequality like this, and therefore to take no responsibility for redressing these inequalities is wrong. To focus on just your grape and yourself is wrong. Not to bat an eye as you pass by a scene of misery is wrong. It means that something's broken inside you as well. There is a psychology professor, Susan Fiske. She's out of Princeton University. She has found that when research subjects hooked up to neuroimaging machines, when they look at photos of the poor or the homeless, their brains often react as if they are seeing things, not people. I mean, no wonder the response to poverty is so often not sympathy, but revulsion. Rush Limbaugh, Bill O'Reilly style. And no wonder that response to government programs that fall short of perfection is so ruthless because, after all our hard-earned money has just been wasted on things, not people. The monkey with his grape, he loves to criticize. He loves to second-guess. Violence of judgmentalism. Writer Tressie McMillan Cottom nails it on the head. At the heart of all the incredulous statements about the poor decisions that poor people make is a belief that we would never be like them. We would know better. We would know how to save our money. We would eschew status symbols. We would cut coupons. We would practice puritanical sacrifice to amass $1 million. Books about the modest lives of the rich like to tell us they drive Buicks instead of BMWs. What we forget, if we ever knew, is that what we know now about status and wealth creation and sacrifice are predicated on who we are, not poor. If you change the conditions of your not poor status, you change everything you know as a result of being a not poor. You have no idea what you would do if you are poor until you are poor. And not intermittently poor or formerly not poor, but born poor. expected to be poor, treated by bureaucracies, gatekeepers, and well-meaning, respectable authorities as inherently poor. Then and only then will you understand. That's what we're trying to do today, trying to understand, trying to bring a deeper compassion to this issue more than ever before, trying to heal, to be a part of the solution. 50 years ago, President Lyndon Johnson stood in the Capitol on January 8th, 1964. It was his first State of the Union address. He committed the nation to a war on poverty. We shall not rest until that war is won, he said. The richest nation on earth can afford to win. We cannot afford to lose this. And I am struck by what one of the fighters in this war has had to say. Bill Bowling, he's been a part of this war for 40 years. He's the founder and executive director of the Atlanta Community Food Bank until 2015. He says, it never really felt like a war to me. There was never that feeling that our country or our local communities would use any means necessary to win this war. I served 4 years, he says, in the armed forces, some of those years in Vietnam. That war felt different. There was a tenacity, a sense of duty that those soldiers experienced. The war on poverty has felt more conflicted. Instead of putting all our energy into fighting poverty, we have spent it arguing over facts, struggling with dysfunctional systems, and fighting cynicism. That's Bill Bowling. He's dead on. President Johnson called for an all-out war, but it's not really ever been fought like that. With the same scale and focus as we saw perhaps in World War II. The sense of tenacity and sense of duty in all citizens has not been there. Yes, some welfare programs have been ill-conceived, absolutely, but you know, in the history of warfare, you see all sorts of crazy weapons, see stupid equipment. It doesn't mean you give up that war. It means that you double down and get smarter. You try harder. Meanwhile, the reality still stands. The monkey who gets the cucumber, the monkey who gets the grape. The experimental setup is intrinsically violent. And these monkeys are us. Atlanta has the worst economic inequality of the 50 largest cities in these United States. 20% of the people living in Georgia are food insecure, meaning that they don't always know where their next meal is going to come from. 28.8% of Georgia children living in food insecure households, they're going to go to school. They're going to be taking tests of enormous importance that are going to help dictate their future, and they will not be able to concentrate because they're starving. Where do we go from here? Bill Bowling says, but I still hold hope. Fighting poverty has been a journey, rewarding for those who gave themselves to service, insightful for those who cared to learn about the systemic issues, transformational for those who were willing to overcome prejudices. There are Bill Bowlings in this space. Ron and Beth Davis, some of the Bill Bowlings among us. You remember them? Remember that young man they worked with, Ethan, who once said, I'm never going to go anywhere, right? Beth kept on working with Ethan through the 4th and 5th grades. Gradually, he came out of his shell. He learned behaviors that were more cooperative, more constructive for his life. Ron says, I last encountered him at Operation Peace during the summer after the 5th grade. One day, a staff member gave the students a vocab quiz, and not surprisingly, Ethan did not know some of those words, but he politely beckoned me over. He didn't go into his shell. He politely beckoned me over and asked me what those words meant. That is progress. Progress. One person at a time. Progress I want to emphasize, which is possible. Whatever your particular social justice passion happens to be, poverty is an overarching focus. You can help heal it through your LGBTQ activism. You can help heal it through your peacemaking activism, your environmental activism, your legislative activism, your anti-racism, anti-oppression, multiculturalism activism, and on and on. Poverty intersects them all. And I'm going to talk more about this in that worship series coming up that John mentioned a little bit ago. truths of poverty. Taking on this overarching focus challenges us to become more creative in our social justice work than ever before, because the different passions we bring to the table, they got to start talking to each other. They got to start cooperating with each other, coordinating. You know, we're working to get out of this space and into a new permanent facility. Let's make that facility as big as our passion for this is. The only reason for a new facility is so it is a foundation work for this. I say raise millions of dollars if it makes us able to rise up to this. Do you hear me? If poverty becomes our unifying focus, no friend or member of UUCA could ever say again, I yearn for traction. I yearn for unity of focus. I don't want us to get lost in options, and I don't want us to be all scattershot. Let's not be lost. Let's get found. There's nothing scattershot about how we find ourselves in some kind of crazy experiment in which some of us get cucumbers and others of us get grapes. There's nothing scattershot about how that violates people to the core. Nothing scattershot about the brokenness. It is the worst form of violence. And how proud we could be of UUCA to know that this congregation chose as its fundamental focus to heal the worst form of violence, and to do this with the best form of collaborative, congregational action. How proud we could be.
You ready? You ready? You look ready. I'll see many of you at 4 o'clock for Roy Zimmerman's concert, so happy he's going to be here with us. Our last hymn this morning is number 168, One More Step, and we're going to sing it slow, because sometimes steps are easy, and sometimes steps are heavy, and sometimes steps are muddy, and that's okay too. Please rise, in body or in spirit. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Let's join hands for the benediction. So I want to share with you a spiritual practice that I have developed recently. And it's when I see someone standing at an intersection and they're homeless, they have a sign or whatever, and they're asking for money, I just reach into my little stack of dollar bills and I give. Open that window, give. Now, I'll tell you, that's not what I've been doing for a long time, because what I have been doing, and I just want to confess this to you, you didn't think you'd hear a confession this morning, is I would see those people outside my car, and I'd think, what are they going to do with that money? Right? I would see those people outside the car, and I would feel myself go dead. It was as if I was a part of that scientific experiment that Susan Fisk ran, right, at Princeton. I was seeing those people as things, and I could feel it in myself, a deadness in myself. How many of you can relate? Yeah, this is a space of intimacy and sharing. None of us is perfect, and I'm confessing to you a place in my life where I just was in shock. And so now, so the spiritual practice, you know, that little part of the car, the door that opens up, right in your car. I have my stack of dollar bills, and I just give, and I don't care what they're going to do with it. I just give. And I confer that to you. I confer that to you this morning. Our faith is a transformative faith. Proud of Unitarian Universalism. Go in peace. Go in peace this day.
I'll give you $1. I won't forget you. Of course, now let's flip the script here. Now. If it is I on the corner, will you give me $1? You give me $2. So back on soccer match, she was up 5-2 and barely pulled out 6-4. Yeah, she does. That's the part that she's got to learn and work on. Yeah. And I wish me to